Welcome, everyone. We have the distinct privilege of being with Reed Summers, who, with his father, Marshall V. Summers, furthered the work of Allies of Humanity, an organization that Marshall Summers started in 1992. And Reed is also the director of the Society for a New Message. Thank you for coming on to this. I guess it'll be a multi-level event, and one that for me has been in the making for many years, because in the summer of 2005, my own book, Exopolitics, which was credited with founding the fledgling science, according to some, of exopolitics, and that is the study of a populated universe and multiverse, populated and organized by intelligent species and interdimensional civilizations. At that time, I was invited to my first public conference, and I was invited as a keynote speaker by Professor Leo Sprinkle at the University of Wyoming to deliver an exopolitics address. And right there was a very handsome stand by the Allies of Humanity. Mm-hmm. And during the breaks, we struck up a conversation, speaking with each other, and I was really struck by the advanced thinking which was coming out of the people there, because I had just spent this amount of time thinking about the same issues. So I was so struck by that. So I'm very happy that at this time, 12 years later, our paths finally come together. And as I understand it, you are now going out around the communities, giving briefings on the Allies of Humanity. And now with all of the leaks that are coming out about ET disclosure, mm-hmm. at the quasi-official level, that is, you've got at least in the US, you've got organs like the New York Times and CNN dealing with issues of extraterrestrials, which, if you go to the website of Allies of Humanity, which I urge everyone here to do, there's some very deep concerns here. Mm-hmm. And so what I thought is that for the first hour of our 2 hours being together here approximately, you could brief us and bring our audience and myself fully into the perspective of the Allies of Humanity, which is, as I understand it, they are true allies of humanity. These are the views that have been shared by some advanced communities out there, and you'll be telling us all about that. So without further ado, please.
Great, Alfred. Well, thank you for that intro and the opportunity to share what is really a tremendous body of work that's been coming through my father, Marshall V. Summers, for near on 34 years. It's been a multi-decade journey, and the Allies of Humanity briefings are part of that message that has come through my father, and they present a sobering but deeply grounded and clear assessment of the reality of contact that's happening in the world today and has been happening for some decades. And I feel the Allies briefings really represent kind of one of the first starting points that people should stop at in their journey of exploring the phenomenon around UFOs and contact and disclosure as well. It's perhaps the most clear distillation of decades and decades of research by thousands of individuals around the world that I think has been provided to the world. And what better place to start than a clear, objective assessment of what visitation is and what we personally and collectively need to do about it. So I'll talk a little bit about how the Allies briefings came to be, and then I'll just basically present the essence of what the briefings say about contact, what is happening, why it is happening, what it means, and what must we do, each of us, personally and collectively, about contact. So in about the year 1997, my father, Marshall Vian Summers, was deep in the process of receiving a communication from an angelic source about the future of our world in what it called a greater community of life, a greater community of worlds in the universe of which we have always been a part. Every minute, hour, and year of human existence has played out in this greater community, and yet we are unaware of it and unprepared for it. And this message coming through my father, which even in the year 1997 was many thousands of pages in length, and which is now called, you can find this message online, it's called The New Message from God, and much of it has been released online for people to read and to hear. Even in 1997, thousands of pages had been given already, and the reality of contact was kind of the emerging next piece of the puzzle being given at that time in Marshall's life. And it was at that time that a remarkable contact was made. And my father was not looking for it, expecting it. In fact, the preparation for it went back many years before 1997. But it was in 1997 that the angelic presence that my father had been working with over many years, receiving these divine communications for the world, which related to our emergence into this universe of life, signaled that another message must be received, but not from the source that he had been connecting with for so many years up to that point. Instead, it would be from a group of off-planet observers who called themselves the Allies of Humanity. And Marshall went through some waves of reluctance and anxiety about what this would be. What am I receiving here? Can I trust this? Is this, where is this going to take me and my family? And though he was involved in the world of contact to some degree, his emphasis was more on teaching what he then called a greater community spirituality, a spirituality that is universal to life in the universe, that is being introduced into our world for the first time. And the book, Greater Community Spirituality by Marshall Vian Summers, was released in that time frame. You can go read that online. It is an unbelievable cosmological and theological window through which to look into the larger cosmos in which we live. It really is a very special text. And so with reluctance and some anxiety, Marshall accepted to receive this communication coming from this group of off-planet observers called the Allies of Humanity. And it was in 1997 that Book 1 of the Allies of Humanity briefings was given. And this was given to Marshall really in a state of revelation, whereby the angelic assembly was acting as the conduits for this communication to be spoken through my father's own voice into an audio recorder and then to be transcribed and published, which is how all of the revelations he's received have been delivered. And the Allies of Humanity stated that they did not want to use a technological means of conveying their information because it could be tracked, it could be thwarted, maybe even manipulated in some way. And so this spiritual connection was made possible. And of course, Marshall had been engaged in this for years at that point, and so his connection was quite strong with the angelic presence. So what came through Marshall in that year was a book of briefings by the Allies of Humanity that really set forth to observe and detail the activities of the hidden extraterrestrial presence in our world, why they're here, who they are, and what they're doing and why, to answer those fundamental questions. And Book 1 of the Allies of Humanity was, for me, an amazing text. Let's see, I was somewhere around 13 years old at the time, and I do remember reading it, certainly on my own initiative, a couple years later. And what this book opened up was a world of connection, really, a connection with the greater community. And it activates it, it speaks to it, it calls it forth, and it recognizes it in us in a way that is really special. So I really recommend everyone go and read the Allies of Humanity briefings, Book 1. It's free online. And have that experience for yourself. So this book really opened up a whole world through that would later be revealed in unbelievable detail through Marshall in the years following. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But the essence of the Allies' message in Book 1 is that we are an emerging world. We are a young adolescent race stepping out of adolescence into adulthood. And we are literally standing at the threshold line in evolution that separates our adolescence from really the emergence of our race as a free and sovereign people in a vast universe of life. This is the step that we're about to take, or maybe the shoe has, left the floor but hasn't landed yet. We're somewhere in the middle of taking this big step at an evolutionary level out into the greater community. And just like an adolescent in a big city stepping out onto the pavement of the big city, we're leaving the familiarity of our home and environment and entering an environment of tremendous influence and challenges and survival, but also greater relationship and connection as well. It's really a greater panorama of reality as we see it here in the world. And yet, to function and survive and even succeed and thrive, we need something. We need a preparation, and we need a set of briefings from those free worlds in our vicinity to tell us about the environment we're stepping out into, and to reveal to us clearly the form of contact that's underway that really is forcing our world out into this greater environment of life. This isn't going to be on our terms. We're being compelled out beyond our doorstep onto the big city streets because contact is underway. Contact has been underway for over 5 decades. It's been underway for a very long time in ancient times, but not in the form it is today. What we're experiencing today is a very different form of contact with a very different agenda and outcome. And heretofore, we, even those who are aware of contact, have not been able to assess this clearly, to assess who is here, why they're here, and what they're doing, and why. And so this is why the Allies of Humanity briefings were sent. And so in the briefings, the Allies both talk about our emerging world, this evolutionary track that all worlds take as they step out into a larger universe of life, and the great challenges that brings. Challenges of going from tribes to nations, going from nations to a world community. The challenge of facing environmental destruction, which the Allies reveal most races who emerge take that course of basically causing vast destruction to their natural environment, rendering them very vulnerable in the future. So we have this beautiful picture provided by the Allies about the process of emerging out of isolation in the universe, where all we do is interact with each other, human to human, to being a world involved and connected to the greater community of worlds, where interaction will occur with other forms of intelligent life. So we have that beautiful picture painted by the Allies of Humanity. And then we have a very sobering expose of the reality of contact as it is occurring now, not by the Allies, but by what they call the intervention. And the intervention is in essence a consortium of groups who are here in the world primarily because of the resources of the world, as well as its strategic position in our local region of space, and the receptivity and usability of the human species. So in essence, as we step out into this larger universe, we don't encounter scientists and enlightened races and ascended masters and all of this. We encounter in the prosaic resource explorers, those willing to make the long journey to get here for a reason, because there is something valuable about this world and about us as humans. And this, the Allies call the intervention. And the intervention is really a set of economic collectives who are here to explore our world, try to integrate themselves into this world and into humanity in order to make this world a part of their collective. And it's not the picture of contact that any of us wanted, for sure. It was sobering at first for Marshall and myself and everyone around him, because naturally we want to think the best and we want to hope for the best, and we want to find something in contact that inspires us, that takes us beyond the limits of the human realm and gives new possibility to human life, new technology, new realms of social structuring or governance or something. And so we all have this natural optimism facing the unknown, which is entirely appropriate and, well, acceptable, given our long isolation. All we've had is our own imagination and some degree of scientific inspection of the universe through optics and other forms of science. But we haven't had anything to really give us a full heartbeat on what life is like out there, to really wake us up and give us a sober view. So the Allies presents that sober view. It is reality-based, it is grounded in our experience of nature, and it basically paints the picture of life in the universe and the reality of first contact here on Earth in ways that are very plausible, that are verified by the phenomena of contact, such as UFO sightings, abductions, mutilations, implants, and so forth, verified by that phenomena. And also it's a message that is fundamentally bringing power back to us, the natives. It's not a message that's taking power from us and saying it belongs with an extraterrestrial power. It's putting power in the hands of us, because we are the natives of a new world being discovered for the first time. And we are divided into over 170 nations. We're in contention on almost every imaginable issue. We can't find common ground on much, especially the things that really matter, like the state of our environment. And contact is underway, a very dangerous form of contact, and we are not seeing it clearly and responding to it. And so the Allies of Humanity bring forth that perspective. They talk about what the intervention is doing, and they present its 4 fundamental activities. And I'll read those activities to you now. These are the 4 areas of action the intervention is engaged in order to further their agenda of gaining access to the world and its people. The first activity is influencing individuals in positions of political and commercial power. So the intervention recognizes that they need to gain access to the halls of power and authority in our world whenever and wherever possible. And being that we are a world of many, many hundreds of countries with separate economies and governance structures, that presents quite a challenge, I'm sure, but also an opportunity for them to work with different individuals and groups in different ways, and unfortunately generate conflict and division as a result. So the intervention is engaged in reaching out to individuals in positions of power, promising them wealth, preeminence in the world, technology that others don't have, free technology, things that can be used to amplify the power of that group or that government. So that's the first area of activity for the intervention. The second is creating hidden establishments in the world from which they can project influence upon large population centers, essentially influencing the thinking and the emotions of millions of people at a time in subtle ways, shifting humanity into a more weakened, depleted, conflicted state. Basically a state that renders us open to intervention, even wanting intervention. And the Allies of Humanity call this program underway the pacification program. It is a concerted attempt to pacify the native peoples, to bring our sense of reality down, to actually disperse our sense of reality, to actually put in question our sense of reality, to amplify and encourage certain thoughts and emotions that are negative, hostile, weak, and giving over of our authority. And so it is from these hidden establishments that they are able, through technological means, to project that influence in what the Allies call the mental environment. And now the mental environment, new idea. And there are so many new realities presented in the Allies' briefings and in the new message from God that it begs going to it, reading it, seeing what's there, and learning, because this is an education. This really is a new reality of awareness and education that's come through Marshall. And it's too much to say in a few minutes. And one element of that new reality is what the new message and the Allies call the mental environment, which is the parallel reality to the physical. It's an environment where thoughts are generated, extend themselves in unpredictable ways, and influence other thoughts, the thoughts of other thinking, sentient life. And now in our world, we have forms of intelligent life with vastly different brains and ways of thinking, and much more powerful ways of thinking, where they can, in a very concentrated manner, generate thoughts that influence others. And of course, as humans, we're somewhat weak. We're somewhat impressionable and influenceable even by each other. And none of us are really developed in the mental environment. And so, unfortunately, that renders us vulnerable to this pacification program, which is occurring in this mental environment. So that's the second area of activity, is hidden establishments and the creation of a pacification program. The third area is manipulating our spiritual and religious beliefs. Now, this is a whole world we could talk for hours on. Humanity is a people quite rich in spiritual traditions, diverse views, and a quite remarkable aptitude for devotion towards the divine, an unseen force, or devotion to other forms of unseen power, spirits, ancestors, and so forth. We have many, many religious traditions. The Allies say this is an asset. This is actually a huge gift that we have to offer the greater community. Because the greater community, being a challenging physical environment, has led many worlds to become highly technological, highly secular, to have very strict top-down structures of authority, and by and large, to lose their native spirituality and religious traditions if they ever had them. It is not the spiritual universe that we want. It is not a universe where, the next door neighbor is enlightened and so is his neighbor, and there's a few bad ones, but mostly good, or maybe half good. That's actually not the picture that the Allies of Humanity present. It's much more akin to the world we see today, just on a vast scale and at a level of technological achievement beyond what we can believe. But it is a universe, not a world, it is a universe of competing powers. It is a universe of territory. It is a universe of interaction and influence for trade and for other reasons. And as technology has amplified amongst races and been copied and developed, basically influence and the ability to exert your will upon others has transitioned in some ways out of technology and into the mental environment, into the power of group mind, focusing itself to generate an influence over another race in this case. So it is a universe of many challenges, of many physical realities, many natural laws that we can observe here in our world hold true there too. It's a universe of competition. It is a universe, however, with a spiritual direction. And this is really what the new message from God presents, which is the spiritual direction that the universe, however slowly, is moving, inching in the direction of. And the importance of our world as a world rich in spiritual traditions, the memory of people who have transcended a human awareness only and have achieved some degree of spiritual advancement. That our world actually has a gift to offer, a gift to contribute to this greater community of life. And yet at the same time, though we have this gift, it can be used against us. And this really is the third activity of the intervention, which is influencing our religious beliefs, our symbols, in ways that benefit the intervention. And in this sense, we have many open doors, many back doors into our own minds, unfortunately, where we believe in the coming of a savior or a messiah or an imam. We are opening ourselves to what we believe are angels or mediums or ascended masters and so forth, opening ourselves in essence to unseen forces. And in the mental environment, unseen forces can be generated, can be created and directed. And that is what is happening. Our religious beliefs are being turned to face the ET presence. We're being turned to think that they are the enlightened saviors of this race, that they created humanity in the ancient past, that they created our religions, that our great prophets and messengers may have even been extraterrestrial in origin. Turning our prostration, our belief and our faith towards an off-planet physical presence that is in our world. And there are so many innumerable ways that this can be done and is being done. And it's quite concerning and very dangerous, unfortunately. And in addition, people are very sensitive to visions of saints, of saviors, to religious experience. Religious experience, spiritual awareness are these gifts that we carry, and yet the intervention has the power to project an image into our awareness, to cause us to see a saint or a prophet or a messenger in our own mind's eye. And this is happening around the world. So this is the third area of activity of the intervention. And then lastly, and perhaps most disturbing, is a hybridization program to integrate the awareness and the intent of the extraterrestrial presence into humanity at a physical, genetic level in order to create a being or class of beings who is fully human, looks, walks, talks just like you and I, but is fundamentally aligned to the intervention and receptive to it and possesses some of its remarkable abilities as well. And the goal here is to create a leadership for our world. It's a leadership that looks human and by all accounts can't be anything but human, but in truth is fundamentally not human. And this is accounted for tremendously in the literature and in the research of many individuals. David Jacobs comes to mind, who's done a lifetime of research into the phenomenon of abductions and really the goal and outcome of the abduction phenomenon, which has become clear as day to any who can see it clearly. So this is the picture. These are the four activities of the intervention. This is the local universe into which we are emerging. This is our position in our evolution as an emerging world. And the allies of humanity present what really is a compelling call for us, the natives, not to submit to any ET power, not to receive technology from any ET power, but to see the situation clearly, to take ownership of our position as the native peoples of this world, and to do what we must now do to secure our freedom, to repel the intervention, and to prepare for our emergence into this universe of life at many different levels: physical, mental, spiritual, social, political, economic. The preparation is huge. And Marshall really has been teaching this preparation for many years now. The New Message from God presents it very clearly. And there's a community of people actually around the world who are gathering night and day, undertaking that preparation. And if you go to the New Message website, there's a link to the community of the New Message, which is a community of hundreds, maybe thousands of people around the world who are undertaking the preparation that the allies of humanity call for and that has been given through Marshall, through the New Message from God. So that's a brief picture on the allies' briefings. And what we might walk away with it from is a clear sense that we have hit the tipping point. We have crossed the line in our evolution. There's no going back. We have been an isolated world for how many millennia or longer. And now we are stepping out into an advanced playing field of different forces and influences with different intents. And we must A, be a part of it, and not just queue out and be a human and live our lives distracted and, oblivious to this larger evolutionary track we're taking. But even as we participate and become aware, we have to educate and prepare ourselves in the reality. Not the preferred reality, not the reality we might want or make, but the reality that is. And for that, we need a reality-based preparation. And that is fundamentally what the Allies of Humanity are calling for. They're calling for enough people to become forerunners for the human race, to prepare in a greater community education and awareness, and then contribute that to the world in ways that are unique to them, unique to our own gifts and purpose for being in the world at this time. And the preparation that the Allies speak of and that the new message provides is called Steps to Knowledge. Steps to Knowledge is a book of 365 daily steps, and it is a journey into contact with the deeper spiritual mind within each of us. And it is a preparation for the thinking mind, the surface mind, and the deeper mind to unite in this life in a way that supports humanity's emergence into the greater community. So Steps to Knowledge, a remarkable book. I started it when I was 16, briefly. I think I got maybe 40 or 50 steps in and then, wasn't quite ready for the rest. But I've since done it many times, and there are thousands of people around the world studying it daily. And it's bringing a tremendous sense of perspective about their own personal affairs and the state of the world, and a real salt of the earth preparation to actually take you and me somewhere we haven't been before. Not a bunch of fancy terms or names and dates and, research into the UFO phenomenon. Instead, it's a preparation that we can take day by day that actually begins to change the look and the feel of life and begins to orient you to participating in the world with a greater community awareness, an acknowledgement of life out there, an acknowledgement that you, as an individual, may have had a past lineage out there, and that your sense of divinity, your sense of spirituality is not just human, it's connected. It's connected to that vast web of life, and that there are experiences and memories and a deeper orientation that comes alive when you begin to think of yourself as a human with a greater community awareness. You become a Muslim with a greater community awareness, or a Christian with a greater community awareness. And this begins to heal many ills and address many unsolved questions about life. And also let go. It allows you to let go of some things that you've been attached to maybe all your life, and really embrace a completely new kind of picture about what we are as human beings, what we're a part of, and where we're going, and our connection to the great coordination that's underway in our world at this time. Coordination on behalf of the angelic presence to prepare this world to safely and wisely emerge into the greater community. So all of this begins to come alive with Steps to Knowledge. And I recommend everybody at least go download the PDF that's free online and read the introduction and look at these steps. These are remarkable steps. This book was given through my father in a matter of days, nonstop. He spoke it, it was recorded, and what you read is what was recorded. I can't imagine any individual writing a book of that quality. And I urge you to go look at it and discern its quality for yourself. And if you feel that contact and the reality of life beyond the world has always called to you, and that there is an innate sense of heritage, of history there, and a sense of consequence about your life, that you're here in the world when we're emerging, at the time of our emergence, if you feel that, then begin steps. Step number 1. You can begin it at any time. And it begins a journey of unfolding the layers, the layers of what the world has conditioned in you, but also the layers of deeper experience and connection and awareness that you brought into the world. Those are also there. And so, Steps to Knowledge, an amazing journey to take and many people taking it in the world. And that's so important, because enough people have to be oriented as, as rational thinking people to the reality of life, to the reality of contact, to the reality of the intervention. And all that says about the importance of human unity, of the unity of religions and their common source, of the preciousness of our environment, of the need to make personal compromises for a greater good as the world faces a world of slowly shrinking resources, as it faces a climate that's been altered and so forth, that individuals, enough people, make that compromise for a greater good. All of that comes through the steps to knowledge. So that really is the preparation and the way forward. And as we step back and kind of look at it in total, what do we have? Okay, what do we have? We have a phenomenon of contact with other forms of intelligent life underway for over 50 years' time. We have governments being contacted. We have individuals being taken. We have a variety of activities underway that are likely not signs of good intent by those visiting us. We have a plethora of messages from ET sources claiming enlightenment, claiming to be here to save us or bring us into a new golden age, tapping into all of our religious ideas and symbols. Ascension, the Aquarian Age, Jesus, everything can be tapped into and is. We have that going on. And we have a growing number of people around the world waking up to the fact that the greatest event in human history is happening. Contact is occurring. Our isolation is over. And yet as they enter that world of information and perspective, it's not clear what's happening and why. And so we have people researching that forever and ever, asking the first two questions. What is happening? Why is it happening? Never really getting to the second two questions. What does it mean? And what must we do? They're really important questions. And the Allies of Humanity briefings, in my experience, provide a good deal of what we need to know about what is happening and why. It's right there. It's as clear as day. We are the native peoples of this world. And just like the native peoples of the North American continent, South American continent, throughout the historical record on Earth, the native peoples sitting on top of valuable land, resources controlled by others, who see tall ships coming over the sea, over the horizon of the known world, and are faced, all of a sudden, forced to face, who are these individuals? Why are they here? What does it mean? What must we do? And that is currently the position of humanity. And we may project onto the visitors all of our hopes and desires, our desire for something fresh and new, our hope to be a part of something more spiritually important in the world than just working a job and living a life. And yet, it's time now to get sober and clear and reality-based regarding what contact really is. We are the native peoples, and this is an intervention. These are forces coming to our shores with their own intentions. And if we don't discern those intentions, if we demand disclosure from one another but not from them, then we are making ourselves wide open and vulnerable to all manner of influence and manipulation. And so I really do compel people to stop and think and really assess this from kind of ground up. Before we leap to conclusions of who the visitors might be or how great they might be or where they come from, what their names are, let's look at the situation. We are a world of 7 billion individuals, a world that is divided in conflict daily, a world whose environment is being destroyed every year. And yet this world is a biological gem. It's a gem in the universe of barren worlds. And here we're being visited. And the activities of the visitors are not beneficial. These are not good activities. Abducting people against their will, placing technology or some sort of transmission device in their body, mutilating animals, causing harm to personal life and property, engaging the military in ways that are very dangerous. These are not disclosed intents. These are surreptitious activities that all signal intervention all across the board. And yet that most people have leapt to the conclusion that these are enlightened visitors who are here to rescue us in some way or unite the world, or that they own us or that they authored us. These are understandable first thoughts and impulses, but we need to mature out of them. It's time now as a race to realize we're the native peoples. We need to unite for the preservation and the protection of Earth. And that, in a nutshell, is really the Allies of Humanity briefings. I encourage everyone to go read the briefings because there's only so much I can do in 45 minutes to present them. There are 3 sets of briefings. They're all free online. And after reading the briefings, go look at Steps to Knowledge. Go look at some of the videos and interviews of Marshall, my father, Marshall V. Summers, and get the full picture on what we're really facing with contact. And see if this speaks to you at a deeper level. Because the message of the Allies may not be what we want. I think I can probably say it's not what we want. You know, what we want is something brighter and more full of hope and love and new panoramas and, you know, fascinating contact experiences. That's what we want. That's okay, you know. But reality is reality. We're facing a real phenomenon. This is nature playing out. And we have to go beyond what we want. And in fact, we need to not want things from the visitors, because when you want something from someone, it compromises your discernment. Now all of a sudden you have a vested interest in an outcome. We need to step back from that, I feel, and really gain an objective assessment of contact that has occurred heretofore. See ourselves as the native peoples, which we clearly are. See the value of this planet, which is clear as day, and really take the steps individually, not waiting on government, not waiting on elite groups and the deep state to reveal the secrets that they know. That is empowering the very forces that may or may not be working with the intervention. We are the people who need to be empowered. And that is precisely what the Allies briefings are. The Allies briefings are disclosure. They are the disclosure that we need. They disclose the intent of those visiting our world, and they disclose what we need to do, collectively and individually, about it. That's the disclosure we need. Waiting on government for another 5, 10, 20, 30 years to reveal documents and juicy details and names and dates and meetings. This is not actually, whether it happens or not, whether it's authentic or not, going to actually tell us what it means and what we need to do. And that's why I feel the Allies briefings are the place to start as you explore contact. And they may be, maybe, for some, the place to end as well, where once you know, you know. You know, take the Native American tribes of North America 200, 300 years ago. Here they were facing visitors to their shores, Europeans from different countries with strange garb, strange technology. Some of the tribes welcomed these visitors. Some repelled them. There was dissension between the tribes regarding how to react to this, how to take advantage of it. And I'm sure to them, at that time, it looked wonderfully interesting, complex. You know, are these spirits? Are these our ancestors? Are these powerful emissaries from another world? Who are they? You know, and I'm sure there was much debate about who the visitors were and what to do and whether to welcome them or how to cooperate and trade with them. But the now, in perfect hindsight, we know that the picture was abundantly simple. These were forces intervening in the native world of North America, there to take advantage of the people and the resources and to take what they had. That is, in essence, the simple truth, and it really is simple. Contact is complex in all the facets of its phenomena, but in essence, it is not as complex as we think. So, and with that, I think that kind of reveals in some ways what is standing in the way. It's not the government, it's not the deep state, it's actually us in some ways. Because in all honesty, I don't know if we want the mystery to end. I don't know if we want to see the picture clearly. Because to see the picture clearly means you have to do something about it. You have to take a stand. You have to commit some amount of your life or your resources or your energy to responding to it. You know, to see the picture clearly means you can move on from the question of what is it to the question of what must I do. And none of us, likes to change a whole lot. Change is not easy, especially change on this order. This is about the biggest change you could ask a human to make. This is transcending our tribal, religious, national identities to some level. This is embracing our enemies among the human family to some level. This is making sacrifices personally. This is not having the life of grand fulfillment and creativity and expression we thought we should. In fact, it's something else. It's a life of purposeful contribution to our world, acceptance of our world, going back in, re-upping our commitment to humanity, our faith in human leadership. Many people have given up on humanity and human leadership. That's actually one of the core messages of the intervention. Basically, when the intervener comes, they have to displace the native people's sense of reality and commitment to one another. So they undermine our sense of commitment to our leaders. They undermine our sense of commitment to our spiritual traditions and our cultures. They degrade those. They say they're lesser. They're fear-based. What we bring is love-based. They disturb our sense of reality. They teach that all sorts of things. They teach that humanity was authored by an alien power, or that the earth is flat, or who knows, disturbing our sense of reality. This happened throughout the history of humanity when advanced powers interacted with weaker, less advanced powers and took advantage of them. This same story of intervention took place. And though the universe is not necessarily a replica of what's happened here, in no way, the truth is we do have a world of 7 billion sentient life forms that has a history, a historical record that we can analyze. And that is called humanity. And so I do feel we need to start there, start at the ground level, which is nature, science, history, human experience, and not leap to some belief system that embraces, enlightened, multidimensional beings with no questioning of them. So this is kind of the important next step that sits before us, those who are aware of the phenomenon of contact. We have to be courageous enough to go beyond the first question of what is happening and step into and really transition out of it. How much more research do we really need? How much disclosure do we really need to know that there's an intervention and that we actually have the power, as the Allies say, to thwart it without too much effort? It's actually quite vulnerable in its position. We have the power to do this. But we, who are aware of it, have to acknowledge that it's real and that this has to do with us and that we're willing to play our part. So, this is the essence of the situation. It's a calling to people around the world who have this sense of connection to this time, to this step, this leap out into the universe in which we live, who have this sense of connection to contact, who have a sense of history or memory about life beyond this world. These people, the new message calls greater community people. They're people who were born into this time to serve the world at this point in its evolution. And they come bearing gifts. They come bearing a greater awareness. And there are millions of these people in the world. And I would make a fair guess that there are a good many watching right now, listening to this right now, who have this sense of a greater community connection, who haven't, no matter what they've done and tried, been able to satisfy themselves with purely human aspirations and goals and successes. It's just not enough. It doesn't reach deep enough in them. There's another part of them that is not activated and awoken and given the ability to communicate in the world by all that they see in society and culture. There's something deeper, and it has to do with contact. And those people are with us, they're watching, they're in the world, there are millions of them, and they are the ones who will take this race of humanity forward into the greater community. But they need to know that their sense of connection is with the greater community. It's not necessarily with those visiting our world at this time. So we have to step back and acknowledge there is a spiritual awakening occurring within us because of the greater community. But those races interacting with us now, these are of a different order. Our relationship is not with them. It's with what's out there. It's with where we're going. But we have to get to where we're going. We have to go through the thresholds of early contact. We have to face intervention, which is, it's what it is. It's a quiet integration into our world, or the attempt at that. And get beyond that and realize that we have gifts to offer humanity, that we are connected to the allies of humanity who have given these briefings. This group of individuals, the allies, were sent to our world to represent freedom in the greater community and to show us what freedom looks like and how it can be achieved. They were sent to the vicinity of our world to give these briefings, and then they departed. Their briefings have been given. They're no longer in this world. Well, they were never in this world. They came within the vicinity of the world. To go beyond intervention and realize we're a part of that too. We're a part of this network of spiritual advancement and the cultivation of freedom, the awareness of what the new message calls knowledge, spiritual awareness. This is happening throughout the universe. This is what we're connected to, in truth. But we can't just open the front door of the house and think that, the guy in the suit with the briefcase is the one that represents it. That might just be a salesman, actually. Or that might be someone there to rob your house. And in fact, our house is being somewhat robbed. Visitation is happening without our consent or approval, without our awareness. This is an invasion of sorts into our private space. And yet our future does lie out there in the larger panorama of life. So as we become aware of the intervention, take the steps to knowledge, help others become aware and take those steps, we become the forerunners for really a new expression of humanity, a new chapter, where we're not just human anymore. We're connected. We're a part of the web of life. Not just the animals and plants in our world now, but all life. And that's a very exciting thing for people to become a part of, I think, and to do it in a very grounded way, in a way that's really real. It's not idealism. Someone didn't think all this up and just hopes and wishes that this is true and that's true. No, this is a revelation. This is a revelation from the divine, given to enable us to emerge into the universe in which we live in a safe, clear, and powerful way. And I hope that those with us feel that calling to prepare. And if they do, the resources are here, the Allies briefings are here, and the new message revelation is here as well. So I'll stop there, Alfred.
Thank you. It's a very deep, substantive, broad, and concise summary. Thank you. It really opened a lot of avenues for me personally.
Good.
Very good summary, and I'm sure for our viewers as well. And I was wondering, just before we transition to the next part of the program, would it be possible to share one of the steps so that we understand what a step looks like or sounds like or is?
That would be wonderful. Do you have one in mind, or I can pull up steps here and find one?
I don't know. I mean,
okay. I would love to do that.
Tell me. I don't know what any of the steps are.
Great. Let me, I have it right here in front of me. There's some remarkable steps on the greater community in particular. In my mind, some of these steps are just simply famous because they present what I think the listener would find very hard to find anywhere else in the world, which is a universal spirituality, non-judgmental, non-dogmatic, that really transcends the religions of today, and yet connects to them, and takes us out into the greater community and back again. I mean, that's what STEPS is doing. So let me read a step here. Here we go. Let's see here. I'll do 187, which is, I am a citizen of the greater community of worlds. So it reads, I am a citizen of the greater community of worlds. You are not merely a human being in this one world. You are a citizen of the greater community of worlds. This is the physical universe that you recognize through your senses. It is far greater than you can now comprehend. The extent of its relationships are far greater than you can even imagine, for reality is always greater than imagination. You are a citizen of a greater physical universe. This acknowledges not only your lineage and your heritage, but also your purpose in life at this time, for the world of humanity is growing into the life of the greater community of worlds. This is known to you, though your beliefs may not yet account for it. Today, upon the hour, affirm your citizenship in the greater community of worlds. For this affirms a greater life that you are now beginning to discover. In your 2 meditation practices, once again enter stillness and quietude. This growing experience of stillness will enable you to understand all things. For your mind was created to assimilate knowledge, and this is how understanding comes about. The accumulation of ideas and the accumulation of theories do not constitute either knowledge or understanding, for understanding is born of true affinity and experience. In this, it has no parallel in the world, and can thus serve the world that you perceive. So that is step 187. I am a citizen of the greater community of worlds.
That's a very, very beautiful affirmation, or if that's a word for it, or insight, community of worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. So then one is the practice then to take one step a day, or to work with step over time, or to work through a step until you're ready to go to a next step?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. Well, it is a step a day, although it's not strict and rigid. I myself I spend days with certain steps because they're so deep, you know.
Yeah.
And this step 187 is in a whole series of steps. I'll just read a few more that follow it, and you can get a sense for kind of where the journey of steps leads from then on. Let's see here. So, after I am a citizen of the greater community of worlds, it goes on. Step 188. My life in this world is more important than I had realized before. Step 189. My spiritual family exists in all places. Step 190. The world is emerging into the greater community of worlds, and that is why I have come. Step 191. My knowledge is greater than my humanity. Step 192.
My knowledge is greater than my humanity?
Yes. I think it would be good to talk about knowledge, because steps to knowledge, what is knowledge? Knowledge is not what we would define knowledge to be in any dictionary. In the new message, knowledge is the innate ability of all sentient life to know at a deep and intrinsic level. It is the capacity for remarkable insight. It is the connection point that bonds us to those who we have been in relationship with, even in past lives or past settings. In fact, knowledge in the new message is really our true self beyond physical life. Certainly this one life. It is the part of us that is still fully bonded to what you might call God or consciousness in the universe. There is a state of permanent relationship and connection beyond the physical universe from which we separated. And that separation caused the physical universe to come into existence, to go bang, and produce galaxies and clusters of galaxies and, innumerable worlds. The new message says there are 100 billion intelligent races in the universe. That's how big it is. And that the separation was the separation from God that caused the physical universe to come into form so that those who wanted to be separate could enter form and express their separation. And knowledge in all of us, you and me, all of us, we are those in this physical, corporeal body and life. Knowledge is the part of us that remained because we can never fully separate. And so within us, we have this deeper mind. And yet we also have a surface mind, the mind that thinks. But that is not who we are. We are not our mind or our body. We are a soul journeying through separation with a firm and permanent point of connection back to our origin. And so steps to knowledge is bringing the thinking mind, personality, emotion, so forth, into connection, even into marriage ultimately, with the knowing mind. And as it is discussed in the new message, this produces a powerful ability to move others at a deep level, and not at the level of thought, at a deeper level. And so when we talk about knowledge, it is this deeper mind and this ability to have profound insight, to experience profound relationship. And also, it is the one part of us that really cannot be manipulated. And I think manipulation is an important reality to face in the world at this time at many levels, but certainly at the level of the intervention. They are actively involved in affecting our thought, affecting our emotions, ultimately guiding our actions. And knowledge, this mind within us, is the part of us that cannot be touched by anything in physical life. It is not in physical life. And this mind has a will. It carries a direction for us individually, a purpose for this life that we're meant to fulfill, and so much more. And so steps to knowledge is really coming back into contact with that part of you. And from there, so much becomes clear that was confusing before. Even the reality of contact becomes clear when it was confusing before. So that's what knowledge is in the new message.
That is really interesting. So it seems this is just, and I look forward to getting my own copy and to embarking on this. I mean, it's the beginning of 2018. It's the perfect time to start, isn't it? I mean, the beginning of a new year. And it seems to me from an exopolitical point of view, looking at that science is positive, that one strategy behind this may be to really reinforce those spiritual circuits among the souls here on earth and among the, as you said, enlightened contiguous worlds, so that all those circuits are, and that's a collective defense against an intervention of a spiritually not as evolved intervention force. I'm just kind of making...
No, you're tapping into the answer, in my view. This is the answer. It's the Allies of Humanity. They are students of knowledge as well. They are students of a universal form of spiritual practice that doesn't have saints and histories and end days and Armageddons and all that. It is fun. It is essential. It is essentially bringing the mind that thinks, that is separated from life, back into contact with the mind that knows, for its own protection, but also so the mind that knows can express itself in this world of separation. They're students of that too, and there are many students of that throughout the universe. And of course, their approach takes different forms. It's not all 100% identical, but the core of it is essentially the same thing. And the intervention is advanced in the sense of technology, and yet not in the sense of spirituality. And people make this mistake all the time, thinking that the technologically advanced must have transcended war, resolved their differences, found equitable ways of dealing with each other, and thus are enlightened, or are certainly more enlightened than us. But that is not, well, what our experience here on Earth says about technology. Technology does not lead to any form of spiritual advancement. In fact, it can become a replacement religion, the religion of technology. You know, the belief that power to affect physical life, geology, what is God. We can be God through technology. That is prevalent in our world today, and there are many people who believe technology to be their savior, in effect, even if they are religious or aren't religious. And the intervention knows exactly how to engage with that belief system, because that is their belief system. They do not recognize the power of spirit, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They wouldn't be intervening in a world, taking people against their will, doing very violent and destructive things to those individuals, colluding with governments, pitting governments against each other. This is not the activity of enlightened anyone or anything. These are the prosaic acts of an intervention with prosaic needs. So when you say that, lighting up the circuitry, I love that image. I have thought that myself. Like, knowledge is like circuitry. It's like dormant computing power, and it like of a level way beyond the mind. And we know what this is. Cultures around the world know what knowledge is. We call it by many names. We call it gnosis. We call it gut intuition. People just talk about it. I had a feeling that, or I had a premonition that. We all know what this feeling of being moved inexplicably is like. We've had moments. And think if that experience went from being a moment or two in the life of a person to being the life of a person. To being something that really is the ordering principle of a life. To be moved at that level. Immensely powerful. Knowledge, as the Allies describe it, it is your one great hope. You will not advance technologically enough to compete with those who are in our world today, to take advantage of our world. We will not develop power in the mental environment sufficient to really, counteract fully the level of influence cast on our world. But we are a spiritual people with deep history of spiritual and religious experience that transcends our humanity. So that step, my knowledge is greater than my humanity, is to say that what you brought into the world, this part of you that is connected to all life and even to what exists beyond physical life, is greater than this part of us. This 6 inches of gray matter, or 9 inches of gray matter, whatever it is, that has been conditioned by a culture, a family, maybe a religion, and here it is, largely afraid, hopeful, distracted, not terribly connected to life, not terribly intelligent in its decision-making, not very wise. That's us, Let's be honest. We are individually and collectively not that far down the road of where we could go. And yet, what we have is this tremendous sense of reverence towards God, spirit, whatever you call it, it's a reverence. Nature, some people find that reverence in nature. I don't think that's much different. I don't find nature to be much different than a chapel. Basically, it's a place where you can re-experience the power of spirit again, and that's what religion is. Religion is a structure to enable people to re-experience this divinity that we carry. And this divinity that we carry, the Allies say, this is our greatest hope, because it will discern and reveal the intervention clearly. It will empower us to take care of our world, to not rely on an extraterrestrial savior to do so. And ultimately, it's what we have to give. It's our greatest gift to the universe in which we live, because out there, it's a universe of barren worlds, technological, hierarchical societies. It's not a universe of monks and priests and saints and mystics. It's a challenging place out there, and to have a rich spirituality to offer, that's quite extraordinary. And the Allies of Humanity call that out. You know, they say you are endowed with these gifts. Much has been given to your world from the angelic presence over time to cultivate this. And despite all of our problems and dilemmas, we still have it.